Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. So there should be a few more coming into our chat shortly. Welcome. There'll be a few more coming into our chat shortly, and we'll get started then. Welcome. So it's 3 o'clock now, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And people, hi, X XX Bella. I think I'm saying it right. Hello. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. And you saw the title that, these people are worshiping different gods. They're worshiping gods, and they're upset because the chosen ones aren't. The chosen ones worship one God, the God who created everything. Um, are you going to the bank? Oh, I guess you're talking to someone else. Um, so when people have worship different gods. They've been worshiping different gods ever since the biblical times. And gods that they worship, you will hear them, in celebrities mention different gods, like, Ogun. And I don't talk about anyone's God because, you don't want somebody to attack the true living God out of ignorance. So that's why it's never good to attack someone else's God. We can have a talk. We can have. I don't like the word debate. I don't debate. You know. We can have a conversation about different gods, but when it boils down to the seriousness of the matter, that it tells you in all of the Semitic faiths that you should only submit and worship one God. When people are talking about different gods, please hit the like button as you come in. Then you need to make sure that you stand on what God has given you as a chosen one. That there's only one God. And worshiping other gods, as we see in society, can lead to your destruction. So, what you want to do is understand what gods are they worshiping. So, as we understand that in the time of Noah, they were worshiping different gods. They were worshiping, anything, entity that their forefathers were submitting to. And it became, just a heritage that, when the children came along, just like now, you know, they started to worship the gods of their fathers. You can see that same thing that with Abraham, where he was breaking down the false idols and the gods of his father. And you will see that they tried to harm him because he would not worship their gods. They tried to put him in a furnace. They tried to unalive him. And we all know that God did not let that happen. So when you go against what they believe in, they will try to extinguish your life. They will try to harm you because you don't believe the same way that they believe. So when you have a lot of people that have been worshiping for a long time the gods of their forefathers in Christianity, and like I say, I used to be a Christian. Then hello, Naber, Motos, and more. Thank you for coming. Thank you, all of you. Please hit the like button for our algorithm. So, when you're a Christian, and I've had people in my family that actually got mad because I no longer wanted to serve the God of my parents. I didn't want to be a Christian anymore. And one of the reasons for that is because I found a lot of discrepancies in the Christian text and the faith that a lot of the pastors, evangelists, and the older people could not explain. They can only say what they have been scripted to say. So I found out that they were worshiping gods within the Christian faith. They were actually worshiping Baal. They were worshiping Ashtaroth and those kinds of deities. But it specifically told you in Exodus, it told you in Revelations as well, that those people are subject to the penalty of the fire. So we want to make sure, and we're going to look at some of the types of gods that they have listed that they were worshiping at the time. So I'm pulling it up right now. And like I said, these were some of the gods listed in the Bible that you want to be able to cleanse yourself of, especially if you have members of your family who believe in these deities, who have been praying to these deities in the Holy Bible. And you don't even know that they're doing it, but you will see it in their pride. You will see it in, when they cannot answer a question, when they don't want their children to grow above them, when they don't want their children to have more knowledge than them. And you have Baal, the supreme god of the Canaanites, associated with fertility, storms, and crops. You have Asherah, a Canaanite mother goddess and a consort of Baal. So you're having people worship different deities to give them children, to give them male children. And these are in the Holy Bible. So this is why, it came about that, there is one God. My grandmother used to say that, God is a jealous God. You're not going to be able to get around worshiping but one God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. But you'll see that these people worship many gods for power, for fame, in order to make you feel little in society. They want to take all of your power because they're worshiping the God of also that racism God, that pride, that I'm better than you. I'm better than you because I have more money. You could not possibly be better than me because God has given me more. But, from our stance, from my stance, God gives people those kinds of riches, that kind of arrogance, that kind of exaltedness to bring them low, just like Pharaoh, to teach them a lesson. So, these are some of the things that we want to make sure that we don't fall into the worship of these gods that were in the Holy Bible, that they were worshiping at the time. We automatically know, that in the time of Moses, Exodus, in the book of Exodus, that they were worshiping the calf, which is also a false god. And you'll see that there are people that worship animals to this day. You'll find countries that worship animals this day. So we also want to make sure that, we don't let our children fall into that worship. The worship of false deities, the worship of gods of old, of the past. So we have also Dagon, a Philistine god associated with grain. This deity at the time, they have put him in a movie, and I remember I think Arnold Schwarzenegger played in a movie where they had the god Dagon come to life. So these are some of the ways that you'll find that they're still worshiping these gods still today. They're going to put them in movies. They're going to put them in plays, and they're going to have people watching this stuff on the big screen, the silver screen, and they're going to, swear that, oh, they're Christians. And you have to prevent your kids from watching these kinds of things. You have to have the control over your kids, or else they fall into the worship of these different gods as well. So we already know that we have people who worship money. They try to get all the money for themselves. Narcissists, they love money. They will try to get all the money for themselves so that, they can put you in a situation so that they can have power over you. So that they can feel like at that time they're powerful. They can talk to you and do things the way that they want to do you any kind of way. Bring your self-confidence down, bring your self-esteem down. So I've seen, in our leadership that it is current in America, that they've called people, fat. They've called people, crazy. They've said people were disabled, and not understanding that it can happen to anyone. Those things that they're, being arrogant about, it's even in their own family, and they refuse to see their flaws because they feel like, they can do that because of the money that they have, because they can be prideful. And they're worshiping these gods. These gods will make them feel that way. These gods will reward them for doing these kinds of things to people, to bring them under the control of this one person. And by the time that they figure out that this person has led them into the hellfire, it's too late. So, we have people even to this day that is still that still worship different gods. Some people think that, I'm gonna put on these clothes, I'm gonna buy the best clothes, the most expensive clothes. And that is what's going to make them prideful. That is what's going to make them feel like that they're better than you. And we always have to, just think about when it first came out that the shoes and things that were coming from China, were cents on a dollar, and you were paying all of your hard-earned money to, think that you're being exalted, that you're better, you got something better than someone, and you got the same thing that was in Target or in one of these, secondhand stores. And there are a lot of people around here who think that, buying materialism and dressing themselves up, make them better than a person because they can afford it. When in fact, these people have been getting you for generations. That's how you get people when they want to look like they're rich, when they want to be arrogant, when they want to look down their nose at somebody, when they want to be better than somebody. Then they're worshiping a god of money, pride, and arrogance. So let's look at a little bit more of the gods of the Holy Bible. We have Artemis, the Greek god of the hunt. So they were worshiping gods, when they went hunting, that, they could bring back the biggest animal, that God would bless them. Well, these people who think that they can worship gods besides God to give them luck, finances, beauty, fertility, money, and to set them apart in life. But even if these kinds of things happen, as in the case with Pharaoh, and that's one of my favorite stories, where Pharaoh told his people that they were going to worship him as a god, that you're going to be punished so severely that nobody will want to follow you ever again. Your name will ring out in the streets. Oh no, don't follow behind him. Don't be like him, because he was drowned, and he was cast back up on the earth so that people can see that he was no god. So again, anything that you can say that has a birth, anything that lives, that was born of a woman, anything that dies, anything that you can crucify, it cannot possibly be a god. So that goes with any kind of idol that you might be worshiping, that you might have received from other people in your family. And this is why I bring up Abraham, because he was had to question his father. He questioned his father, what are you worshiping? And if I can break your gods into pieces, then what are you worshiping? What have they been worshiping, before I was born? Oh, you're worshiping something that's false. Anything that can be born. I'm gonna tell you this again, so you guys don't miss it. This is for the people in the back. Anything, any deity that you're worshiping that was born, anything that you're worshiping that will die or be crucified, can be broken to bits. Anything that has been created and is not the creator, it is no God. It cannot possibly be God. So, this is where we stand, with these people worshiping false things to give them power over other people so that they may be rewarded by the entity. A lot of people do not understand that worshiping false gods, you might get some reward, at the present time for the moment, but the longevity, when you are in the long haul, and you start losing your health, the entity abandons you, that deity abandons you. You're no longer able to serve it. And we see that with a lot of these celebrities, you know and I forgot her name, that talk show host. She's a talk show host that lost her husband, and then she went into rehab facilities, and all of that. And I'm sorry, I can't think of her name because I don't even watch TV like that. But you can see the entity attached to their life, how they start looking bad when that entity starts to detach themselves, when it starts to discard them, when the deities that they're serving starts to discard them. They no longer have any use for them. They're old, they're washed up. We're seeing that, and I talked about our good buddy Dr. Umar, because he's all over the news, but he was on a lot of his speeches talking about, he was, worshiping Ogun and, all of these African gods. So when you're offering yourself to these gods, when they abandon you, the crash to the bottom is severe. It's severe. And as we're seeing that, so, if these gods that they were serving did not create the heavens and the earth, if these gods that they are serving did not create the heavens and the earth, the moon, the stars, if they're not the creator of, human beings, the creator infinite, the exalted in might, then they could not possibly be God. They're not fit to be worshiped. And a lot of you have to pay attention to that when you're training your children. You can no longer just go along with what's being taught to you in the Christian, churches, because they're worshiping money. They're there to, siphon all the financial energy off of you. They're there to have you serve them in the church, where they're siphoning your, psychic energy off of you. Your bodily, your soul, your energies off of you, because they're no longer serving the one true God. They're serving money. They're serving jets. They're serving trips. They're serving fornication, in those churches. And you have to be very careful what you enter into. So when you're in a relationship with anyone, I've had to question people who I had gotten married with. So, you said that you were Muslim, but you want to go and get me a straight blonde wig and put on. No, no, thank you, brother. No, thank you. And guess what I'm going to do for you? I'm about to divorce you, because you're not who you say you are. Oh, it's permissible. You're not going to, if you're not going to change, if you say that you're Muslim and then we get in there in a relationship, and you're still doing things, you want to celebrate holidays, and oh no, you're not who you say you are. You're a part of those people who are worshiping an entity. You're worshiping, the proximity. You're worshiping something else. You're worshiping money. I've had some people in my relationship that says to me, I want you to be my peace. I want you to be my God. Oh, no. I've had some men to tell me, I'm going to be your God. I want you to worship me like you pray 5 times a day. And I really want to say what I said to them, but, I said to them, you got me messed up. I didn't say it like that. And ultimately, I had to get away from that person, because they're distorted. They're used to worshiping something other than God. They're worshiping money. They're worshiping flesh. They're worshiping the way a person looks. Again, that's why I cover my face, because in American society, they are more or less concerned with how you look than what the message is coming out my mouth. They want to know how I look. You could not imagine how many people have asked me to take off my hijab. So what? So you can see how I look? Okay. I look like every other woman, every other female. Very simple. So I can always tell by the things that come out of a person's mouth. I can discern when they're worshiping other things, when they've been trying to hide something, or they've hidden who they are worshiping. So we have to be very careful in our relationships, when in any relationship, when we're with, people that we're trying to, move to other cities like I am, and you think that they're spiritual narcissists, then, 9 times out of 10, you're not wrong. Follow your instinct. That gut feeling is not going to lead you wrong. That discernment is not going to lead you wrong. So, we have people that will worship other gods, but say that they are Muslims and Christians. So I wanted to bring this to your attention today, that, they are still worshiping, even though that they say that they are, believers. They're worshiping the God, and they fall in line with this entity. Please make sure that you hit the like button. And we are, it is binding on us that we stay away from these people. You have to do exactly what I did. You have to back up off of these people. You have to let them know, oh, I see that you're lying. I see that, you're still in your addiction. I see that you're gluttonous. You see that red flag. I don't care how long they've tried to hide it. Soon as I see that red flag, soon as they let it that hang out where they think that it's okay, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. So, we also have Astarte, Ashtoreth, Ashtoreth, a Canaanite goddess of fertility, sometimes called a companion of Baal. We have Chemosh, the national god of the Moabs, the Moabites. We have Anamelech and Adramelech, deities worshipped by the people of Sepharvaim. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And it's mentioned in the Second of Kings. And, the final one, the one that we're all familiar with, is we have Beelzebub, mentioned in the New Testament as a name for the prince of demons. So, these people, they have been trying to get around God and the chosen ones for a long time. They have been trying to get the chosen ones to fall in line with what they worship. And even if the chosen ones, don't recognize it, or they go with it at first, they know that something isn't right. And the chosen ones is not going to be with that. As soon as the chosen ones see that it's something fishy, no, we breaking those false idols, those idols down. We're going to call you out for it. And a lot of these people do not like that. A lot of these people who are lining up with other deities, who worship other deities, they will try to harm you because you won't fall in line with what they worship. There has been many occasions when, when I was a younger person, that, one of my parents would come in my room, and they would see me, studying the Holy Bible. And they would, take the Bible away from me, because they wanted to be able to discern from me, or they wanted me to be able to worship them as a God. And when I just said, okay, well, I guess that I just can't read the Holy Bible in your house. I'm going to go over here to grandmama's house and read the Holy Bible. But I guess that, if it's on those terms, it's just as the same that I became a Muslim. My grandmother's brother was Muslim, and I became a Muslim in her house. Yes. So, it didn't stop anything. I continued to, study both the books, but I moved away from worshiping those gods when I found out that, in a lot of the churches, like I say, my mother had her own church. My mother was an evangelist. And a lot of those people, they worship money. They worship other gods in those churches. And they will become enraged with you when you don't line up with what they want you to line up with. When they're unable to sacrifice you or take your gifts, for the entity that they serve. A lot of times you will be outcast, you will be abandoned, or they will try to physically harm you in these spiritual places, even in your own home. You will be um, scandalized in the neighborhood. And it is a word that a lot of people are not used to. Going through those kinds of problems in their life, they're not used to it. They think that if you are going to church, that you're serving the one God, the God that created everything, that created the human beings, that we submit to, what our parents. But we have to understand when we start pulling away and we start questioning, and we see that the smear campaign starts against us, when we start being oppressed by the very people who said that they are our leaders, our parents, in community, in society, leadership, wherever. When we start being oppressed, you can best believe that they fall in line with the entity, with the shayateen that came against Adam from the very beginning, because of pride and arrogance. So I hope that you have, really enjoyed this message, and you can check this message out online. It's gonna be posted later on. Please like, share, and subscribe to me. Donate to my page. You can book a session with me. You can also book a one-on-one consultation with me. Please follow, like, share over all of my platforms. I'm High Oracle Reiki Spiritual Healer. Assalamu alaikum.